I know Alvaro isn't here, but I guess how did he kind of integrate himself and work ahead, knowing that he's going to be in Spain with the national team? And what are your kind of early impressions of him?
I mean, we just shifted his weeks a little bit because he can shift individual sleeps. The biggest thing for him was just understanding kind of the weights and conditioning piece of it. From a basketball perspective, he's pretty plug and play because he can pass so well and he can shoot. He's ultra competitive. His greatest strength is his greatest weakness. It's probably too competitive sometimes, but we'll dial him in. But he'll learn a lot playing with the Spanish national team, both the U20 and the men's team as well.
In your press conference, you talked about having a servant mentality. With your Drake guys coming over, how can they be kind of an extension for that for the new guys?
I mean, my job as the coach is to serve my staff, serve the players. And the players' job is to serve the University of Iowa and everybody in the program. And those guys do that. And honestly, sometimes to a fault right now. They're probably doing a little too much of serving each other and serving their teammates to where it's like, okay, you're still got to focus on yourself a little bit. And so they're doing a good job of that. But we got a long ways to go.
Back here.
Yep.
You think Sturts is an NBA player, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's good as there is, but I'm not an NBA front office, but right now I think it's whether they project him top 15 next year, but he's still got a whole season to go. So
okay, well, along those lines, why does he have the potential?
He's got an elite IQ. He's very athletic. He can shoot, pass, dribble, do everything, run the show. And in the NBA, there's more space on the floor, so he'll actually be more effective in the NBA because you can't be as physical. They actually call fouls. Not that they don't call fouls in college, they just don't call as much. And so I think he'll be even more effective the higher the level.
He would be sort of against the standard in the NBA, which is a 22, 23-year-old rookie. Would that work against him or work for him?
For him. Because he's won his whole life.
Yeah.
He's won his whole career. He's developed the right way. And honestly, some people's bodies develop a little later. He's a little later bloomer, too. It wasn't, when he came out of high school, it was pretty gangly. And then eventually he just developed. Because a lot of your early draft picks are so physically developed. Now he's just starting to hit what some people would be an 18, 19-year-old. Plus, he's learned the system. We run an NBA-style system, from our ball screens, from the things that we do. So that'll help him. On top of all that, defensively, we were, number 2 in the country in defense. When you go to the NBA, I think it was Tony Bennett said something the other day, I heard him say it. It was, hey, your job is to get yourself to the NBA. My job is to keep you there. What keeps you there is your defense. And he's gotten so good defensively on top of all that.
How beneficial will it be that this is going to be your 4th year in a row working with him for both of you guys? 4 straight years.
What really benefits me, it makes me look like a coach a little bit. But for him, I think just understanding the system, he's got a grip on it. And it took me a little time to figure out how to use him the right way because he's such an elite passer. Where in the past, we've had a lot of just straight downhill guards. Now we've got a guy that can also pass, shoot, move around a little bit, and it's definitely been helpful.
With these guys who came over from Des Moines with you to Iowa City, what kind of off-court advice have you given them with just by nature of the job, bigger facilities and more eyes in the state of Iowa and across the college basketball world on them?
Yeah, I think one, I guess, when you get here and you have to tell your family this, don't pay attention to social media, but they did that to us at Drake. And, there's always fans that do that. And a lot of it's just Iowa State fans anyway that troll. So you've got that piece of it. Just make sure that you turn some of that off and understand that's just noise and it is what it is. The good part for them is they're such quality kids that they, from a social aspect, they just play basketball, hang out with their family, and Bennett goes frisbee golfing. Like, that's just what he does. And so the guys don't really go out and get in any trouble anyway. Understanding that the eyes are on you constantly. You go to a restaurant, they're paying attention. They're watching everything that you do. So knowing that, but other than that, pressure is what you make it. They've already got pressure on themselves, so just not paying attention to the outside noise.
A lot of publications had you guys listed as off-season winners. Standing here 4 months out of your first game as coach, do you feel like an off-season winner? And were you guys competitive in the transfer portal with what you were able to offer?
I mean, we're an off-season winner because we took 6 guys from a team that won 31 games. So anytime you take kids off of a team that won so much, that's a big deal. And that's what we're able to do. And fortunately, they played for me. So that's part of it. And then obviously Alvaro fits very well. And Brendan, we haven't seen him play with our guys except for once. And so, he's doing good as well.
What was it about Trevin when you were, recruiting him that stood out, that made you think his game could, transfer over to major college basketball, I guess, if you want to call it that?
Well, we recruited him to Drake and wanted to get him. You and I had built a relationship with him. I think ultimately he wanted to go to Iowa, and they just didn't recruit him, and then got committed to you and I, went out to Peach Jam, and played at an elite level. But at that point he had committed, so he didn't entertain a lot of the Power Fives. Fast forward, he got the job. He ended up getting his release from you and I think it was just for one place. And that was that. It wasn't like a recruitment. We didn't recruit him too good because he was already signed. It was just, he called us and said, "Hey, coach, got my release. Great. Let me check." Go check to make sure that he's got his release, and he did. And that was it.
You've got Final Four chairs back there. Are you trying to tell your guys something?
No, that's the women's. But the women's team's going to be really good. Yeah. So no. I mean, ultimately your objective is to win your last game, and they're well aware of that. It's not something we talk about ever. It's just more of the process of being better.
I know it's been a few years since you recruited Ben in high school, but what do you just recall about that process?
It was a 1.5 year process. I mean, we offered him maybe in February before senior year, and I think it was maybe either May or April that he committed. He just, like, Division I saw him, and they didn't want him. And so it's just like, hey, he told him right away, if I go to Division II, I'm going to Northwest. So we were patient, waited, and then came to Northwest. We always knew that he's probably, honestly, I thought he was a high major guy. I really did. When we recruited him. Obviously now he is. And so, he's just much to the level of humility, has some physicality. You got to use him in the right way. But it was a fun process to recruit him. It got easier to recruit him to Drake, and even easier to recruit him to
For the young guy. For the young guys on the team like Trevin, how important is it for leaders like Bennett to transfer your message and lead on the court for them?
I mean, just how they act. Bennett's going to be here at 6 a.m. and get his shots and work. And I think actions a lot of times are a better message than just your words. And so they've taught them how to work. Standard is the standard, and hopefully we'll teach them how to win as the season hits.
When you two more questions, you've talked a lot about making sure that you have the right type of guys. I mean, when you have to rebuild the roster, you have 6 people come over the Drake. But how tough was it about trying to make sure you identify the right kind of guys in the portal? And again, it's essentially speed dating, and with all the other factors. I guess what have you kind of learned about really kind of working the portal, making sure that you do get the right guys to your program?
Yeah, I think for us, and this is the benefit, and I said it in an interview the other day, the benefit of me being at Division II is I've had the opportunity to work through positives and negatives. So I've made a lot of mistakes, and we've done a lot of things right. And I didn't have a lot of the external noise while we were doing that. And then, obviously we won a lot of games while we were making mistakes and while positives happened. Fast forward to this, that gives you a sense of confidence to build your roster, because it's like we've built rosters. Obviously, this is the Big Ten. It is different. You need a little better player, a little bigger player, a little more physical player, but the attributes that you still want are still the same from a personality standpoint, where you want tough kids, you want humble kids, you want guys that want to serve. You don't necessarily want the kids that everybody else thinks you should want or need, because sometimes they aren't a fit. And especially for University of Iowa, we have to establish a culture, and then our ultimate objective is to recruit from within. If you've got a bunch of kids that people don't want to be around, it's going to be difficult to do. So we sold out on making sure that we got the right personalities to build for the long haul, to build for the future of the University of Iowa.
Ben, Cooper said
Last question.
Thanks, James. Weight room and defense were two things that you emphasized more than the previous regime. How have the quote-unquote new guys adjusted to that pounding the pavement style of get in the weight room, play some serious defense?
Yeah, great. I think there's a level of physicality to it and intensity. It's more just that intensity defensively. My eye naturally goes to defense, even though our offense has been really good throughout the years. So we make sure that they understand that the weight room is where you establish your culture and your physicality. So that's what we've done.